Welcome to another audit walkthrough video from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in today's video, we're going to be going over Audit Area 1, and this is Section C2. This is a remembering and understanding topic. Identify the nature, scope, and objectives of engagements performed in accordance with Government Accountability Office government auditing standards, including single audits. And we're going to be doing that the SuperfastCPA way, which is diving straight into the questions to learn the material. Now, if you don't know much about our strategies, make sure you go to SuperfastCPA.com and check out our free 1-hour webinar training. We will go over the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam, and again, it's only 1 hour, it is free, and we will show you how to pass the CPA exam without wasting months of your time. After you watch that, you're going to want to learn more, and one of the things that you should learn about is becoming a SuperfastCPA Pro member. SuperfastCPA Pro members get access to a lot of great materials, including the Pro course, where Nate teaches exactly what you're supposed to be doing every single day. It's kind of like a more in-depth version of the webinar, and Pro members get access to the full 10-question versions of these 5-question YouTube videos. So we're only going to be going over 5 questions today, but SuperfastCPA Pro members will get access to the full 10-question video that I'm going to record, and that will be in the member forum. So if you like this and you like our other material, make sure you check out becoming a Pro member as well as checking out the webinar. With all that, let's dive straight into the questions. All right, here we are at question 1. Let's just dive straight in. An independent auditor is conducting a financial audit under Government Accountability Office, or GAO, Government Auditing Standards, or the Yellow Book. So basically, this is about the Yellow Book. Which of the following is a primary objective of the audit? So they're doing a financial audit. What's one of the primary objectives of a financial audit under the GAO auditing standards? So let's read through the options. A, to determine whether internal controls are operating effectively for all federal programs administered by the entity. B, to express an opinion on whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. C, to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of the entity's operations. Or D, to provide limited assurance over the compliance with laws and regulations. Okay, so in this first question, we're learning about the scope, nature, and objectives of a financial audit under the GAO. If you have any idea how this works, or if you've seen the other videos, you probably have a decent idea of what this is going to cover. If not, though, that's okay. We are using these questions to learn how to do the material. So let's dive straight into the explanation if you haven't already figured out the right answer. Okay, here we are. The answer is B, to express an opinion on whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So that is one of the primary objectives of a financial statement audit or a financial audit under the GAO. So let's walk through this. A financial audit under the Yellow Book aims to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented and free from material misstatement. It also includes testing for compliance with laws, regulations, and grant provisions that could materially affect the financial statements. So let's walk through the nature, scope, and objectives. Nature, very simply, focuses on financial reporting and compliance. That's kind of the main idea, the theme of doing this financial audit. The scope, and again, remember we talked about this in the previous video, where we talked about the nature, scope, and objectives of different audit engagements not underneath the Yellow Book. The scope is basically how you accomplish the nature, how you accomplish what you're supposed to be doing. So the scope for a financial audit under Yellow Book includes risk assessment, testing financial data, and evaluating internal controls. Auditors must report material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in internal controls. So that's kind of the scope. That's kind of what you're doing in this financial audit. And the objectives, and this always seems to kind of intertwine with the nature and the scope. And so the objectives are express an opinion on the financial statements, report on internal control issues, and identify material non-compliance. So one thing I want to point out here, if you watched the previous video, there's a key difference here between this financial audit and the audit of issuer audits. So let's talk about it. Yellow Book audits require compliance testing and internal control reporting, even when these issues don't affect the financial statements. Issuer audits, and again, that's kind of for like a public company, focus mainly on financial reporting and only include internal control opinions in integrated audits. So there are some slight differences there between an issuer audit and a Yellow Book audit, but these are fairly similar. Now, again, this is a financial statement audit. Again, it makes sense that they are reporting on the financial statements and their reasonableness. So we learned the nature, scope, and objectives of a financial audit under the Yellow Book. Now let's go to the next question. Okay, here we are at question 2. Under Government Accountability Office, or GAO, Government Auditing Standards, or the Yellow Book, and I promise I won't say that in every single question, which of the following is a primary objective of a performance audit? So now we're talking about a performance audit. Let's talk about the different options. A, to determine whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. B, to evaluate whether resources are used effectively and efficiently and in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. C, to test whether internal controls over financial reporting are functioning as intended. Or D, to provide an independent assessment of management's assertions about financial information. Okay, so think about performance, what that typically means. Remember, a lot of times with audit, you have to think about what the words mean. And a lot of times that will give you context and understanding to be able to pick the correct answer even when you're not 100% sure right off the bat. So think about the word performance, think through these options, maybe pause the video if you need to, and when you're ready, come back. We will learn about the nature, scope, and objectives of a performance audit. All right, here we are. The answer is B, to evaluate whether resources are used efficiently, effectively, and in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Okay, let's walk through this explanation. A performance audit under the Yellow Book evaluates the efficiency, effectiveness, and economy of an entity's programs, operations, or activities. It focuses on whether resources are being used appropriately, goals are being met, and compliance with applicable laws and regulations is maintained. So let's now talk about the nature, scope, and objectives. It kind of mentioned some of it in that paragraph, so let's just kind of be more clear here. For the nature of a performance audits assess how well a government entity is achieving its objectives and whether it is using resources effectively and efficiently. The scope includes evaluating program results, operational processes, compliance with laws and regulations, and the use of public funds. And then finally, the objectives are to provide insights and recommendations to improve operations, accountability, and governance. So this is different from a financial audit. And here, let's talk about some of the key differences. While financial audits focus on fair presentation of financial statements, performance audits examine operational and programmatic outcomes to assess effectiveness and efficiency. So different objectives there, different things that they're trying to accomplish. Now we've learned about another type of audit under the GAO. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 3. Which of the following is a primary objective of an attestation engagement performed under government auditing standards or the GAO? So again, let's read through these options. A, to express an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. B, to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of an entity's operations. C, to provide an independent conclusion on a specific subject matter or assertion. Or D, to determine whether an entity is in full compliance with applicable laws and regulations. So yet again, we're talking about something new. This is an attestation engagement. And if you know what that is, that's great. Then you'll have an idea what the correct answer is. If you don't, that's okay. Remember, we are using these questions to learn the material. And also remember that as we're going through these questions, we're just kind of doing some surface level stuff. That's why we're talking about the nature, scope, and objectives. But we're going to dive much deeper into each of these as we get through audit. We're going to talk about financial statement audits in more detail. We're going to talk about attestation engagements in detail and a lot more things that you actually have to do with them. Again, this is just kind of a surface level nature, scope, and objective, just so you know, have a general idea of what an attestation engagement is or what a financial statement audit is under the GAO. Now, again, if you know the answer, that's great. If not, let's go ahead and look at the answer together to learn. All right, here we are. The answer is C, to provide an independent conclusion on a specific subject matter or assertion. So let's talk about this. Let's learn what attestation engagements are. An attestation engagement involves providing an independent assessment of a specific subject matter, such as internal controls, compliance, or other financial or non-financial data. It is narrower in focus than a financial or performance audit and is typically designed to address specific criteria or objectives requested by stakeholders. So let's kind of talk about the nature, scope, and objectives of these. And again, this is kind of a bit broader. There's a whole bunch of different types of attestation engagements. We're going to talk about those in future videos, but let's talk about the nature here first. Focuses on evaluating and reporting on a specific subject matter or management's assertion, often defined by the engagement agreement. Let's talk about the scope. Varies depending on the type of attestation engagement, and again, there are different kinds. There's examination, review, or agreed upon procedures, and the criteria used to evaluate the subject matter. So again, the scope can vary when you're talking about different kinds of attestation engagements. So again, you'll learn more about that as we talk about those in future videos. And finally, let's talk about the objectives. To provide assurance, reasonable or limited, or findings related to subject matter based on agreed upon criteria. So this is a little bit more generic, a little bit more broad because there are different kinds of attestation engagements. So the scope can vary, the objectives can vary, but overall, you're just trying to provide assurance about something specific, and the scope is about, again, something very specific that you are trying to find information about. Some examples would be reporting on the effectiveness of internal controls, assessing compliance with specific grant requirements, or providing findings based on agreed upon procedures for a particular program. Again, it would be one of those. Attestation engagements usually only cover one specific thing. Attestation engagements are distinct from audits because they focus on a narrower topic and may not require the comprehensive evaluation of financial statements or operational efficiency. Okay, we've learned a little bit about attestation engagements. Again, we're going to dive deep into what each one of them is as we go through audit, but right now we were just doing a basic overview of the nature, scope, and objectives of general of attestation engagements. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 4. Which of the following best describes the nature, scope, and objectives of a single audit? Okay, this is something we haven't talked about yet. Let's look at the options. A, to express an opinion on whether the entity's financial statements are free from material misstatements and evaluate all internal controls. B, to combine a financial audit with testing compliance for major federal programs. C, to assess whether the entity's operations are efficient and effective in achieving program goals, or D, to evaluate whether the entity has corrected all previously reported compliance deficiencies. Okay, so this is something new. We haven't talked about a single audit yet. If you know what that is, that's great. Then you probably already know the answer. If not, though, that's okay. We're going to look at the answer to learn about this together. Okay, I have the answer pulled up here, but before we dive into the answer, I just want to point out one thing. Very frequently in audit, if you ever see an answer that says, for example, A, evaluate all internal controls, if you ever see something that says they're going to do everything, they're going to do all, or they're going to make no mistakes, kind of these extremes, almost always that is the wrong answer, because auditing has a lot of gray area. Auditing can never be 100% perfect and 100% cover everything. That's very rare, if not impossible. So if you ever see something like that, that is something that's almost always going to be the wrong answer. So I just wanted to point that out. This one looks wrong because it says evaluate all internal controls. That's pretty much impossible as far as when it comes to cost and time for an audit. With that, now let's go ahead and go down and actually look at the full answer. All right, here we are. The answer is B, to combine a financial audit with testing compliance for major federal programs. Okay, let's go through this. A single audit is a comprehensive audit designed for entities that expend $750,000 or more in federal funds in a fiscal year. It is conducted under the Single Audit Act and uniform guidance, and that's called the 2 CFR Part 200. You might need to know that 2 CFR Part 200, so make sure you take note of that. Again, we're going to talk more about single audits in the future, but that's kind of the whole thing that makes single audits a thing. Now let's talk about the nature, scope, and objectives. First, for the nature, combines a financial audit of the entity's financial statements with a compliance audit focused on federal program requirements. And we talked about compliance audits in the previous video. Basically, that's where you're testing to make sure that they are complying with the rules, the regulations that they are under. Now let's talk about the scope. Includes evaluating internal controls, compliance with federal program requirements, and that would be things like allowable costs, reporting, and eligibility, and determining whether federal funds were used appropriately. And now let's talk about the objectives. To express an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements and to report on compliance with major federal program requirements. Okay, now let's talk about one thing here. There is a key difference. Unlike a standard financial audit, a single audit extends to compliance testing for major federal programs, making it broader in scope to ensure accountability for federal funds. Because under a financial audit, you are testing for some compliance, but nothing too big. You're not doing a full-on compliance audit, whereas with a single audit, you are doing a full financial audit and a full compliance audit. So there's that difference there. With that, now let's go to the next question. Okay, here we are at question 5. Which type of audit or engagement is being described? So let's read through this to kind of figure out which thing is being described. This engagement evaluates whether an entity's operations, programs, or activities are achieving their intended objectives effectively and efficiently, while also ensuring resources are used economically. It often includes recommendations for improving processes or achieving better outcomes, but does not involve providing assurance on financial statements. Now, based off of reading that, you probably already know the answer just based on what we've talked about before, but if not, pause this, think about what we've learned so far, and when you're ready to come back, we'll look at the answer together to make sure that you picked the right audit or engagement. All right, here we are. The answer is B, performance audit. Again, you probably should have been able to pick that out based on what we've talked about so far, but if not, that's okay. We're going to read the explanation to make sure that you understand. A performance audit focuses on evaluating the efficiency, effectiveness, and economy of an entity's operations, programs, or activities. Unlike financial audits, which focus on fair presentation of financial statements, performance audits aim to assess operational outcomes and recommend improvements. Let's go over the nature, scope, and objectives one more time. Nature examines whether resources are used effectively and objectives are achieved. The scope is broad, covering program outcomes, resource utilization, and compliance with laws and regulations as they relate to program effectiveness. And then the objectives, to provide insights for improving accountability, operations, and governance. And with that, we've gone over 4 different kinds of audits or engagements when it comes to the GAO. Before we do anything else, let's do one more part of the SuperfastCPA process called pillar topics. Now, the idea behind pillar topics is as you're going through the questions to learn the material, you will notice the things that keep popping up throughout the questions. You will notice, hey, I've seen 2 or 3 or 4 questions trying to teach me what a performance audit is, or what a financial audit is under the GAO, or what, the different things like that, teaching me the scope or the nature. These are the things that are going to come up. They're going to be the things that you notice. So these are the pillar topics that you need to write down in your own words so that you know what is most important for test day. And as you're doing this each day, as you're going through the questions, you will be building your own personal repository of the most important things you need to know for the exam in your own words. So let's go ahead and look at the pillar topics for this video. All right, here we are at the pillar topics. Let's go ahead and just read through all of them. Let's start with financial audits. A financial audit provides reasonable assurance that an entity's financial statements are presented fairly and free from material misstatement. Its scope includes evaluating internal controls and compliance that could materially affect the statements. The objective is to express an opinion on the financial statements and report material control issues or non-compliance. Now let's talk about performance audits. A performance audit assesses whether an entity's programs are operating efficiently, effectively, and economically. Its scope often includes examining processes, results, and compliance with laws affecting operations. The objective is to provide recommendations for improving performance and accountability. Now let's talk about attestation engagements. Remember, this is kind of a broad category. There's not just one kind of attestation engagement, so let's talk about it. An attestation engagement provides an independent conclusion on a specific subject matter, and that would be something such as compliance or internal controls. Its scope varies based on engagement type. So you could have an examination engagement, you could have a review engagement, or an agreed upon procedures engagement. The objective is to offer assurance or findings to help stakeholders make informed decisions. And we talked about a review engagement in the previous video. Again, we're going to dive into all the different kinds of attestation engagements as we go further into audit. Now let's talk about single audits. A single audit combines a financial statement audit with a compliance audit for entities expending $750,000 or more in federal funds. Its scope includes assessing internal controls and testing compliance with major federal program requirements. The objective is to express an opinion on the financial statements, report on program compliance, and identify significant control deficiencies. So with that, we've gone over some of the most important audits or engagements that you will find when it comes to the Yellow Book or the GAO. So now that we've gone over that, that is the end of the YouTube version of this video. Remember, we're only doing 5 questions in the YouTube version, but SuperfastCPA Pro members are going to get access to the full 10-question version that I'm about to finish after I do this. So if you like this and you like our other products, make sure you check out becoming a SuperfastCPA Pro member so you can get access to the Pro course and access to the full 10-question versions of these videos so that you can get a bit more practice and understanding. With all that, one last thing, make sure to remember checking out the SuperfastCPA training webinar on SuperfastCPA.com. It's only 1 hour, it is free, and we will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam, and that will be a great gateway into learning more about SuperfastCPA and our products. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.